The winter air over Berlin was heavy with the scent of coal and anticipation. From the Brandenburg airfield, silver Messerschmitt Bf-109s roared across the gray sky, their fuselages scarred from the skies of Spain. Major Hans König squinted through the cockpit glass, his eyes weary, his hands steady. "Spain is over," his wingman murmured over the radio. König didn't answer. Below, Nazi officials stood in perfect formation, saluting their warriors from the Condor Legion. Behind the orchestrated smiles, however, the Reich stirred restlessly. Hitler's voice would soon call for new campaigns, new enemies. The pilots who had strafed Madrid and unleashed terror over Guernica were no longer mere observers. They were instruments sharpened in foreign war, returning now to a homeland preparing for its own. The applause of the crowd drowned the distant unease of gathering thunder, a thunder that would not remain distant for long.
In a dim Berlin tavern, König sat quietly as laughter and music filled the smoky air. Yet his mind wandered back to April 26, 1937, Guernica. The memory of black smoke coiling into the Basque sky haunted him more than any medal on his chest. The sound of Bombay's opening, the cries that followed, they were etched deeper than triumph. "We were told it was necessary," whispered Richter, another pilot, his beer untouched. Both men knew the truth was buried beneath political necessity. Those raids had tested Germany's future air doctrine, precise terror disguised as strategy. As the tavern's gramophone crackled, König's reflection in the glass looked older, haunted, less certain. Around them their medals gleamed like lies. Spain had given them skill, yes, but also ghosts. And as König would soon discover, those ghosts would not remain in memory alone. They would guide his hand over Poland, France, and beyond.
By February 1939, the halls of the Luftwaffe High Command buzzed with plans and speculation. Officers spoke of the lightning war concept, Blitzkrieg. Spain had been its proving ground, and König's reports had become gospel for men like Wolfram von Richthofen. Charts of bombing runs and field observations now determined doctrine. "Speed, surprise, annihilation," murmured General Weaver's successor, tracing his finger across Europe's map. König stood before them, recounting sorties over the Ebro, how they had coordinated Stukas with armored columns. In Spain, they had tested tactics. In Europe, they would perfect them. But amid the polished speeches and crisp uniforms, König felt none of the pride expected of him. He saw only fields of rubble, the cries of civilians, the price of perfection. Still the Reich moved toward its destiny, a war built upon lessons learned in someone else's tragedy.
March 1939 unleashed ceremony and spectacle. Under the Brandenburg Gate, banners unfurled like storm clouds, and engines thundered through Berlin's streets. König marched among the returning soldiers of the Condor Legion, medals glinting like distant fire. Children waved paper flags. Mothers smiled uneasily. Atop the reviewing stand, Göring addressed them. "You are the future wings of the Reich." His voice echoed against stone and steel. But König's gaze drifted skyward. The same sky that had burned over Spain now hung Christine, silent, expectant. When the crowd roared, he felt no joy, only the strange stillness before history's next leap. Later, alone, he touched the silver eagle pinned to his uniform and whispered, "History never ends, it only renames its wars." Behind the cheering, the drums of destiny continued their steady, relentless beat.
Spring came cold that year, with snow still clinging to the barracks roofs in Wernuken. König led training flights now, teaching young men who idolized the Spanish veterans. "Sir, is it true you saw combat over Guernica?" one cadet asked, wide-eyed. König nodded, but said little. His mind was a storm of conscience and inevitability. Orders came in steady waves. Reconnaissance drills, bombing exercises, rapid deployment tests. The Reich was building something vast and merciless. In quieter moments, he walked the runways at dusk, watching the orange glow fade over fields where the next generation prepared for war. The rhythm of marching boots echoed across the airfield as he whispered to himself, "We have forgotten peace." The engines roared to life again, filling the dusk with mechanized thunder. The pause between wars was only an illusion.
August 1939. Tension coiled across every room like barbed wire. Newspapers spoke of Poland, of negotiations, of peace. But the Condor veterans knew better. König stood by the hangar doors as trucks loaded ammunition. "So it begins again," murmured Richter, adjusting his goggles. The rumble of engines somewhere to the east cut through the night. Their training in Spain had been rehearsal. This was the premiere. Yet the same fire that once burned for victory now chilled inside König. His unit was assigned to escort Stukas in the coming invasion. He looked at his reflection in the glass of his cockpit. The same face, but different eyes. Outside, the world held its breath. Inside the airbase, the future of Europe assembled piece by piece, ready to ignite.
At dawn on September 1st, 1939, König's squadron crossed the Vistula. The sun rose blood-red, glinting off wings carrying a new war. Below, Polish towns blurred into chaos as Stukas screamed into dives. König radioed commands with mechanical precision, his training in Spain manifest in deadly efficiency. "Targets confirmed," he said coldly, though his heart rebelled with every explosion. The Condor Legion's doctrine had birthed the lightning war now engulfing Europe. And as he banked his aircraft through smoke and flame, König realized the greatest battle was not in the sky, but within himself, between pride and repentance, obedience and guilt. The war Spain foretold had begun, written in fire across the skies of Poland.
Days blurred into missions. Roads, bridges, rail yards. Targets destroyed with mathematical certainty. The Luftwaffe called it progress. König called it penance. After one sortie, he found a downed Polish pilot still breathing beside a burning wreck. "Why? Warum?" the man gasped in accented German. König stared. Words abandoned him. That night, sleep refused him. The lessons of Spain had turned to commandments of destruction, and König could no longer escape their echo. Even victory seemed hollow, its spoils paid for in innocent blood. Above the dark forests of Eastern Europe, he felt less a soldier than a ghost caught between two wars. The wind outside carried the whisper. The Condor Legion had returned home, but peace had not followed.
In October, as victories were tallied and medals distributed, König found himself in the empty hangar, the cold air heavy with fuel and regret. Richter entered quietly, holding 2 cups of steaming coffee. "You did what you were ordered," he said softly. "Did we?" König replied. The silence between them said everything. The weight of Spain, Poland, and what would come after. Outside, snow began to fall, the first of many winters this war would bring. Inside, 2 soldiers stared at the machines that had made them both heroes and haunted men. König reached for his flight log, pen hovering. For the first time, he didn't record a mission. He recorded a memory. By year's end, König stood once more on a quiet airstrip, the war machine now fully alive around him. The Condor Legion no longer existed by name, yet its shadow remained, etched into every squadron, every tactic, every flight. He looked at the horizon and thought of Spain's dusty fields, of the people who had vanished beneath his bombs, of how easily one war had bled into the next. "All we did was teach the world to burn better," he murmured. Engines roared to life behind him, signaling another campaign waiting in the wings.
König adjusted his cap, stepped into his cockpit, and faced the rising dawn, a dawn stained by history itself. The ghosts of Spain had found their home.